thanks everybody for being here. We have a nice showing today. Really appreciate this here. So ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed members of the Foreign Affairs community, I'm Tommy Asghari, President of the American Foreign Service Association, and I'd like to welcome you all to AFSA's annual awards ceremony. Your presence here is greatly appreciated as we convene to celebrate and give recognition to the achievements within the Foreign Service community. I'd like to recognize and thank the State Department leadership present here today, including Deputy Secretary of State Richard Verma, Director General of the Foreign Service Marcia Bernacat, co-host of today's event, Undersecretary for Political Affairs John Bass, thank you for your presence, Ambassador Derek Hogan, thank you, Executive Secretary of the Department of State, thank you for your presence, appreciate that. Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Europe and Eurasian Affairs, Yuri Kim. All of these people are old colleagues, and it's great to see them here supporting their colleagues who are getting awards for performance, dissent, and lifetime contributions to American diplomacy. Before we begin, I'm honored to extend a special welcome to this year's recipient of AFSA's Lifetime Contributions to American Diplomacy Award, Ambassador Mark Grossman and his family. And I'd like to also recognize former Secretary of Defense William S. Cohen, who is here on behalf of Ambassador Grossman. Thank you for your presence today, sir. We appreciate that. And if I forgot anybody important, you can file a grievance with AFSA at member@afsa.org. So Mark, AFSA is proud to celebrate you for your distinguished service to this country, and we are deeply grateful for you, your family, and your guest presence here today. We are also privileged to have in our midst 6 previous recipients of AFSA's Lifetime Contributions to American Diplomacy Award, namely Ambassador Ruth Davis, Ambassador John Negroponte, Ambassador Ron Newman, thank you for your presence here today, Ron. Ambassador Ann Patterson. Ambassador Thomas Pickering, thank you for your presence today here today, sir. And Ambassador Nancy Jo Powell, thank you. Your enduring dedication to American diplomacy serves as an inspiration to us all. Today, we will present our distinguished recipients with AFSA awards for lifetime contributions, constructive dissent, and exemplary performance. These recipients honor our diplomatic profession, and through their efforts, they make the Foreign Service worthy of respect and support. I am pleased to share with you today the compelling narratives of these exceptional individuals. In addition, AFSA is honored to bestow our newest award, the Champions of the Foreign Service Award, for the 3rd time. This year's honoree, Patricia Scroggs, the longtime director of diplomatic fellowships at Howard University, will be recognized for her exceptional work in advancing diversity and inclusion in the Foreign Service. I also wish to convey AFSA's gratitude to our sponsors, whose generosity has made today's award ceremony and reception possible. The Nelson B. Delavan Foundation, Clements Worldwide, which has bailed me out overseas more than once, the Rifkin family, the Bolin family, the Global Community Liaison Office, and the Palmer family. Your support underscores your deep commitment to the recognition of excellence within the Foreign Service, and we are profoundly grateful for that. With that, let us proceed with today's ceremony. Our first award this afternoon is for lifetime contributions to American diplomacy, and I'm honored to invite to the stage Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, Rich Verma, to present this award to Ambassador Mark Grossman.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor to be here with all of you, and I'm very delighted to welcome all of you, distinguished members of the Foreign Service community, to celebrate, as Tom said, some of our best and brightest for all of their dedication and for their outstanding service to the country. But today, I'm especially honored to present the Lifetime Contributions to American Diplomacy Award to Ambassador Mark Grossman. Since joining the Foreign Service in 1976, Ambassador Grossman has had a long and distinguished career in diplomacy. It's hard to list all of his accomplishments here in the 2 to 3 minutes I was allotted, but let me just highlight a few. He played a critical role in the enlargement of NATO as Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs and as Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. He supported the creation of the Diplomatic Readiness Initiative as Director General of the Foreign Service. He marshaled the diplomatic response to the terrorist attacks on 9/11. After joining the Cohen Group as the Vice Chair in 2005, Ambassador Grossman returned to serve as the Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan between 2011 and 2012. Ambassador Grossman is the recipient of numerous State Department awards, including the Secretary of State's Distinguished Service Award, the State Department's Distinguished Service Award, and the Director General's Cup for the Foreign Service. Again, I'd encourage each of you to read through the program to see his full biography. But let me just say, it isn't just the diplomatic triumphs that set Ambassador Grossman apart. It's also his commitment after retirement to taking care of our own. His work as the board chairman of the Senior Living Foundation has provided needed assistance to Foreign Service retirees and their spouses struggling to manage the financial, physical, and mental challenges of life during their later years. I'll also say on a personal note that I have benefited from his counsel over many years. Now as Deputy Secretary, I think we now actually share the same office as when he was Undersecretary for Political Affairs. So you're often confronted in that office with some difficult challenges, and so the voice of Mark Grossman kind of lingers over the office with a, what would Mark do? What would Mark do in this situation? But he has provided enormous mentorship and support to, at this point, thousands of members of our Foreign Service and Civil Service and to this institution. He has been a thought leader when it comes to the State Department's workforce and operations, and our efforts are stronger thanks to his wise counsel. So Mark, on behalf of the department, on behalf of the Secretary of State, AFSA, congratulations on your incredible career and your achievements. We thank you, we are grateful to you, and we look forward to even more in the years ahead. But thank you for everything that you've done, and now I would invite you to come to stage to receive your award and deliver remarks. Mark Grossman, thank you.
Take your time. Deputy Secretary Verma, thank you very much for those kind remarks. Tom, thank you also for inviting me here today, for giving me this award. I really appreciate it. If you just allow me to take a moment or two to thank a few people in the audience, because as all of you know, you don't end up here without the support of an enormous, enormous number of people. And first, I'd like to just take a moment, and all of those who are previous recipients of this wonderful award would allow me. I'd just like one more round of applause, please, for one hero of this building and hero of the Foreign Service, and that's Ambassador Ruth Davis. Thank you very much. There's a long list of other thank yous, which it won't surprise you will start with my family, with Mildred Patterson, who is here, without whom none of this would be possible, with our daughter Anne. And thank you very much for being part of our lives as well. And then there are a whole set of categories of people here who make up such an important part of my life. an enormous number of friends, and thank each and every one of you for coming here today. I want also to pay special tribute and thanks to Secretary Cohen. Thank you for coming, and my friends from the Cohen Group, where I have spent the last 15 or so years, happily working away with the most remarkable group of people. I'd also recognize, as Deputy Secretary Verma did, the team from the Senior Living Foundation are also kind enough to join us today. One other important person in my life, and now in Tom's as well, is Rochelle Sobel, who is here, the creator, the founder, the chair of the Association for Safe International Road Travel. Rochelle, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done for us and for the Foreign Service. I'd also like to say thank you to Ambassador Alfred Moses, and one person who's not here, but who matters deeply to me, is Morta Bromowitz, who also, I think, played a very important part in so many people's lives. I've often said that those of us who arrive at positions like this, who have the privilege of being at the State Department, serving at the State Department, we didn't just get here. We stand on the shoulders of so many others. And I think it's just worth a moment, if you'd allow me, to just keep a memory for those people who can't be here with us today. And that would be Mildred's mother and father, my parents, and then a group of people who had such an important role as my mentors and friends in my early life. I was thinking the other day about Peter Constable and Eleanor Constable, Arnie Rafel, Frank Trippett, Howie Schaefer, Hal Saunders, Lord Carrington, John Whitehead, and Sheppy Abramowitz, all people who early in my life and early in my career taught me how to do this business and made it possible for me to stand here before you today. You know, when Tom called and gave me the good news that AFSA was going to choose me for this honor, I had a chance to think a little bit about the purposes that shaped my time in the Foreign Service and at the State Department. And from there, it wasn't too big a leap to start to think about this question. What's the purpose of the U.S. Foreign Service? What's the purpose of American diplomacy? And so I would just ask you to give me a few minutes to reflect on that question just for a moment as we start this wonderful ceremony. So what purpose will American diplomacy serve in the 20th century? Like everyone here, I was proud to be a diplomat. I was proud to serve at the State Department, proud to serve with you, Foreign Service and Civil Service. And I believe that diplomacy has a role to play in solving many of the problems that confront individual citizens and the nations in which they live. And diplomacy can do more than that. It can also identify paths to a more prosperous future and a more peaceful future. But positive outcomes like that are not assured. And to make them possible, Americans have to start bridging the divisions that today consume our public institutions. And simultaneously, the processes, the culture, the supporting institutions of U.S. diplomacy must also change if today's diplomats and tomorrow's diplomats have any chance of carrying out their vital work effectively. So there have been a lot of vivid and fanciful, disparaging, and sometimes even useful definitions and descriptions of diplomacy. But I'll give you one I particularly appreciate from Secretary Kissinger. He said that diplomats work to achieve their nation's objectives with an understanding of the other side's history, its culture, and its goals. So I'll offer you three observations from my diplomatic experiences, and you'll have many more, but I hope you'll recognize these. First, successful diplomacy is based on strong national institutions and strong national capabilities. These are the things that make it possible for diplomats to influence our allies, our friends, our competitors, and our adversaries. Second, it's that diplomacy is not the same thing and not a synonym for engagement. So connecting with people, negotiating with people, these are all really important parts of diplomacy and parts of statecraft. But when we talk about American diplomacy, we should focus on the comprehensive strategies that promote and protect American national interests. And third, diplomacy is not the answer to every question. Effective diplomacy is often backed by the threat and sometimes the use of force. And so as we consider this question of the future purposes of American diplomacy, I think it's also important to recognize what I consider to be a fundamental challenge that faces those who today design and execute America's foreign policy. And that is the profound misalignment between how citizens and elites each understand and then define the paths required to successfully pursue U.S. national interests. So a high-functioning American diplomacy can support the realignment of citizen and national interests by helping to create and then executing national policies that can make operational the concept of preclusion, which I first found in a book by Philip Bobbitt called Terror and Consent: The Wars of the 21st Century. Bobbitt argued in that book that nations today find it more and more difficult to assure their publics of what he called increasing equality, security, and community. And in the future, nations will need to pursue policies designed to preclude certain states of affairs from coming into being. Now, you might think, preclusion, this is kind of a low-end challenge. But Bobbitt says no. Making the world safer than it otherwise might have been is not a modest and not a commonplace goal. He said the most remarkable feature of a preclusive victory is precisely the anticipatory, precautionary attention to possible futures. So, of course, diplomats and people who've worked at the State Department have practiced this preclusion without explicitly using its name for many years. And like most of you in this room, I had the opportunity to participate in creating and executing what I now think of as preclusive policies. And I hope perhaps we can share some of those stories at the reception. But a good test of preclusion would be to measure them against the issues that today preoccupy citizens and policymakers: the war in Ukraine and its consequences, the terrorist attacks of October 7, and the terrible human suffering since, the rise of China, the future of global trade and investment, climate change, promoting and protecting human freedom, and the rule of law. And then the other test would be to see, as you imagine, what threats come next, whether a preclusive policy might have some answer to those questions. And again, the list is long, and it has to do with preparing for a next pandemic, reflecting that technologies, including AI and quantum computing, already are having and will have a lot more impact on the work that today's diplomats and tomorrow's diplomats will do. It's about the sanctity of the individual, the rule of law, the promotion of the role of women in societies. All of these things can be put up against this question of preclusion, and perhaps there's some idea there for how to go forward with American foreign policy. And the second part of the question. The second part of the question is, what must be done to foster an even higher functioning U.S. diplomatic service? And 40 years after the passage of the Foreign Service Act of 1980, what about the Foreign Service that needs to be modernized or changed or meet contemporary challenges? And here, if you would allow me, I think AFSA has taken a very important leading role in starting the conversation about some of these questions. And the Foreign Service Journal has been open to talking about these issues and inviting comment and inviting ideas. And the State Department leaders as well. In my career, George Shultz, I think, laid the foundation for a way to think about the institution. Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, Condi Rice, Hillary Clinton, Secretary Pompeo restarting the hiring of new Foreign Service officers, and of course, in his important speech at FSI in October of 2021, Secretary Blinken outlined his plan for diplomatic reform. So Deputy Secretary Verma, the Director General, the Undersecretary for Management, they came into office, I hope, the happy recipients of a lot of suggestions about how to do their work over the next few years. And there were a lot of reports on their desks. And the reports shared the premise that U.S. diplomacy, with its long and proud history, staffed today by a remarkable group and a committed group of patriotic and committed employees, confronts a crisis both from external attacks on its core functions and an internal culture that creates roadblocks to change and needs a brutally self-honest self-assessment of how best to meet its vital responsibilities. One of those reports a U.S. diplomatic service for the 21st century, supported by the remarkable Una Chapman Cox Foundation and published in November 2020 by the Harvard Kennedy School Belfer Center, was one of those reports. And along with Ambassador Marcy Roos, who I'm pleased to say is here, and Ambassador Nick Burns, we collaborated on that report. And I want to thank, again, AFSA, the American Academy of Diplomacy, the affinity groups at the State Department, many outside voices, Capitol Hill, who helped us bring together some of those recommendations. And we're honored that some of the reforms and ideas that we proposed in that report have been adopted. And I'll tell you that after we published that report, and it mostly had a positive response, Ambassador Rees and I decided that we would pursue a phase 2 effort focused on 4 achievable, affordable, and urgently needed high-impact resolutions. And we created the blueprints for a more modern U.S. diplomatic service, again supported by the Una Chapman Cox Foundation, and this time by Arizona State University. And that report was released in September of 2022. And what made it unique was that each blueprint came with a complete set of the legislative language that would be required to put it into place, the administrative language that was required to put them into place. And so we've tried very hard now to move forward on those blueprints. And here again, we thank the Foreign Service Journal and AFSA for their support. So we offered the 4 blueprints to those serving our country abroad and at home, and with a lot of respect to those people who had served and those who will serve in the future. A blueprint about a revised mission and mandate for the Foreign Service, a blueprint about professional education and training, a blueprint about modernizing the personnel system, a blueprint to create a diplomatic reserve corps and surge capacity to meet geopolitical crises and natural disasters. So the job now is to get the blueprints accepted, adopted, and funded. This work is being led by the American Academy of Diplomacy, again supported by the Cox Foundation and Arizona State University. I'd say that the department, if you allow me, and not just because they're sitting right in front of me, have been very positive about these blueprints. So again, I thank Deputy Secretary Verma, Undersecretary for Management Bass, Director General Bernicott, FSI Director Polaschik, each one open to dialogue and have been wonderful to work with on these questions. And we've also found important support and interest in the Congress. And so I'm delighted that a number of my colleagues who participated in that report are here today as well. Let me give you one example before I leave the stage about what's happening, and that's happening on the Diplomatic Reserve Corps. Deputy Secretary Burma and others had the department release a report to Congress this year that recommended the establishment of a State Department Reserve Corps as a strategic and cost-effective solution to enhance the department's diplomatic capabilities. In September, Congressman Jason Crow, a Democrat of Colorado, introduced legislation that includes a provision which calls for the establishment of the Department of State Reserve Corps to assist the Secretary, the Department, and the Foreign Service in the discharge of their responsibilities and functions. And so we're happy that so many of the recommendations have been adopted, and we're very excited about the movement forward on the Reserve Corps. When young people ask me if they should become diplomats and represent the United States, I say absolutely. America needs professional, creative, courageous diplomats who will represent the values and the strength of the United States and will promote and will protect America's interests, its values, its citizens around the globe. Those who answer the calls to service today will do this honorable work in a rapidly changing world, an increasingly dangerous world. They'll succeed only if they strengthen and adapt their practices and their procedures, their culture, and their institutions. They can help fashion and pursue policies designed not only to preclude the worst outcomes, but be also available for a promising future by realigning the interests of their fellow citizens with U.S. national interests. Taking the oath of office to serve at the State Department, Foreign Service, or Civil Service opens the door to living what a former Deputy Secretary of State, Richard Armitage, memory called a life of significance. So I appreciate this award, and I appreciate the opportunity to say thank you for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, and congratulations again, and thanks for those inspiring words. Our next award is our new Foreign Service Champions Award, which seeks to recognize the accomplishments and achievements of a member of Congress, the military, an organization, or individual who has made meaningful contributions to diplomacy and the Foreign Service. Our inaugural award was given to Senator Dan Sullivan, Republican of Alaska, and Representative Joaquin Castro, Democrat of Texas, and last year's award was given to the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. So it brings me great pleasure to introduce Patricia Scroggs as the 2024 recipient. Although Mrs. Scroggs has had an illustrious career in the Foreign Service where she served for 20 years, we are recognizing her for a more recent chapter in her life as the Director of Diplomatic Fellowships at Howard University. Patricia joined Howard in 2006 to assume leadership of the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program, a graduate fellowship of the State Department that aims to support diversity and excellence in the Foreign Service. In this role, she works with the State Department to expand the Rangel program and implement the Thomas R. Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellowship. She also helped to create and implement USAID's Donald M. Payne International Development Fellowship Program, the USDA's Animal Plant Health Inspection Service Foreign Service Fellowship Program, the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service International Agricultural Fellowship Program, and the DEIA Champion Sponsorship Program for mid-career and senior State Department Foreign Service officers. Patricia's exceptional leadership in overseeing these programs has had a profound impact on ensuring the Department of State and other member agencies attract outstanding talent to the Foreign Service. Patricia's stewardship has been instrumental in the ongoing efforts for the Foreign Service to reflect one of our nation's greatest strengths, its diversity. So please join me in welcoming Patricia to the stage to accept this award and say a few words.
Thank you, Ambassador Yasgardi. It is an honor to receive this award and to be in the company of Ambassador Mark Grossman and the recipients of the Constructive Dissent and Exemplary Performance Awards. I thank AFSA for this award and for its continued advocacy for the Foreign Service. I also thank Ambassador, or Director General Marcia Bernacat for her amazing work on behalf of State Department employees around the world. Thank you to Deputy Secretary Verma, as well as so many dignitaries that are here today. We're very honored by your presence. To my family, my husband Steve, and my daughters Sarah and Andy, thank you for your unwavering support. And to the program fellows and alumni who are here today, this award is really for you because you are the ones who are driving the transformation of the foreign affairs agencies. So for me, it's been a joy and a privilege to be a part of your journey. I'm honored to be here be recognized for leading the diplomatic fellowship programs administered by Howard University. These are for the State Department, the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program, and the Thomas R. Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellowship Program. For USAID, it is the Donald M. Payne International Development Fellowship Program. The two new ones for USDA, Foreign Agricultural Service, International Agricultural Fellowship Program, and the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service Foreign Service Fellowship. I get applause just for getting through all those names. I'm standing here today, but these programs are such a team effort. They are state, USAID, and USDA programs that are jointly administered with Howard University. Other key partners include the U.S. Congress, universities across the country, the Pickering-Rangel Fellow Association and other employee organizations, and our amazing senior advisors and mentors. And many of you were here, and I'm just going to say thank you to you as a group. I have been proud to represent Howard University, a storied HBCU and leader in the struggle for equality and diversity. I'm thrilled that my colleagues from Howard are here, many of whom will shepherd these programs into the future. It has been such a pleasure to work with all of you. The U.S. Congress is another essential partner in supporting these programs. This includes members of Congress such as Charles B. Rangel, the late Donald M. Payne Sr. and Jr., Gregory Meeks, Ben Cardin, and other members and staff who have advocated for these programs and who have actually hosted fellows in their offices. I also honor the contributions of Ambassador Thomas R. Pickering, Ambassador Ruth A. Davis, and the late Ambassador Edward Perkins. So our Foreign Service has sometimes been caricatured as elitist and kind of out of touch with the American people. That has never been my experience, working with the outstanding people with whom I've worked for 40 years. But it is true that our Foreign Service has not historically reflected our nation. And representation matters. As FSOs, we represent a beautiful, complicated, and sometimes flawed nation. The diplomatic fellowships allow us to represent this country more fully and effectively. Our Foreign Service better embodies and tells the story of our nation. It is able to engage in unique ways with individuals from nations that are equally complicated in terms of their history and their reality. Diversity of experiences and perspectives improves our decision-making and implementation. And it provides a more vibrant environment in which we live and work. Our fellows reflect the unique character of our nation, with stories as powerful and diverse as the challenges they will face in the Foreign Service. Some bring the wisdom and strength of growing up in urban areas, on tribal reservations, or in small towns or farms. Others bring the tenacity needed to excel as a first-generation college student, a first-generation American, or a refugee from political violence. Some have firsthand experience with the sting of poverty or discrimination based on their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual identity or orientation, religion, or disability. Their broad experiences highlight the opportunities and challenges of our nation and equip them with the resilience, determination, and adaptability that are so needed in today's Foreign Service. When we think of fellowships, we often think of diversity, but they should be equally celebrated for the excellence that they bring our workforce. We and our sponsoring agencies scour the nation for future leaders. Fellows go through a rigorous selection process and 2 years of academic and professional training. They join the Foreign Service highly motivated and ready to go. They have excelled, with alumni leading our overseas missions and our bureaus in Washington, D.C. And their impact will only continue to grow as they move up in their careers. Today, 1 out of every 9 Foreign Service officers is an alumnus of one of our programs. And for our newer agencies, they're already beginning to feel the impact on their workforce. These fellowships are transforming the Foreign Service, and their alumni are contributing in myriad ways at every level, every day, all around the world. So I understand that our alumni were a driving force for this award, working closely with the AFSA governing board members and award committee staff. I feel honored that you think that I have made a difference in your life. I am proud to be called a champion of the Foreign Service, and it was an organization that I have loved serving for the past 40 years. I accept this award with deep gratitude, and I share it with the fellows, the alumni, and the teams that support these programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia, and congratulations again. We will now move on to our awards for exemplary performance, which allows us to honor colleagues whose extraordinary work has led to the betterment of our work environment, success in relationships with host countries, and the advancement of U.S. foreign policy interests. The first award is the Nelson B. Delavan Award for Exemplary Performance by an Office Management Specialist, and I would like to welcome Mark Harrop, founder and president of MD Harrop Strategic Communications, representing the Nelson B. Delavan Foundation, to the stage to present this award. Mark?
Thanks, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. This is the fourth time that I have the honor and pleasure of presenting the annual Nelson B. Delavan Award for Exemplary Performance to a deserving Foreign Service Office Management Specialist, OMS. I was last down here in Washington, D.C. to bestow this AFSA award in 2023, last year, to an OMS who had made a notable contribution to post and morale beyond the scope of her job responsibilities. A quick word about the Nelson B. Delavan Foundation and its formative family members. It was named for my maternal grandfather, a self-made entrepreneur who began a machine tool business in his upstate New York basement after serving overseas in the U.S. Army 13th Infantry Brigade during World War I under Brigadier General Alfred Bjornstadt in 1918-1919, participating in all the major engagements in France. After the war, my grandfather studied engineering at Cornell University, and over the next several decades, his vision evolved into a global enterprise, Delavan Manufacturing Company, based in Des Moines, Iowa. DMC specialized in high-precision nozzles for agricultural spraying equipment, oil burners, and notably special components for jet plane engines during and well after World War II. Following his death in 1971 and the company's sale a decade later, Elizabeth Garnsey Delavan, my grandmother, created the Nelson B. Delavan Foundation as a nonprofit trust in '84, which donates funds to institutions that support animal welfare, a cause my late mother, Ann Delavan Harrop, embraced, cultural and historical regional education centers, and of course, importantly, professional diplomacy and foreign policy. Which brings us back to today's 2024 Delavan Exemplary Performance Award for an Office Management Specialist, whose extraordinary contributions to morale and effectiveness at post go well beyond the scope of her or his job responsibilities. With so many talented nominations this year, the judging panel selected both a winner and, for the first time, a runner-up. Diana Trin, who selected for honorable mention in recognition of her work at the U.S. Embassy, Ho Chi Minh City. And more information about Diana's extraordinary work is included in your program. And the winner of the Nelson B. Delavan Award this year is Dana Sutcliffe, whose innovative work at U.S. Embassy Tegucigalpa helped to create efficiencies in interagency communications and clearances. Dana played a leadership role in the Post Employee Association, helped to build a renewed sense of community at the Post. She has contributed to the Secretary of State's modernization agenda and served as a subject matter expert for the Board of Examiners, helping to ensure hiring practices accurately reflect the complex work handled by office management specialists worldwide. While Dana is unable to join us today, I am pleased to introduce Ambassador Laura Dogu, who will be accepting the award on her behalf. Ambassador Dogu, would you please join me on stage to accept this award and say a few words about Dana's accomplishments? I think we go over here.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations, Ambassador Grossman. A very well-deserved award. A little story about Ambassador Grossman. I got married in his house when he was the ambassador in Turkey, and I was on my second tour. So you never know when you're going to get to celebrate something for somebody. But my name is Laura Doe, and I'm very honored to be here today to accept this award on behalf of my outstanding OMS, Dana Sutcliffe. Dana is unable to be here today as she just returned to post after giving birth to her second child. So when you hear about her remarkable accomplishments from the foundation, you know that she was doing that while busy raising a family as well. Here are her remarks. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. I'm truly humbled to receive the Nelson B. Delavan Award for an Office Management Specialist, and am thankful to the Nelson B. Delavan Foundation for sponsoring this award. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to my colleagues at Embassy Tegucigalpa. This recognition is not just a reflection of my efforts, it represents the collective spirit of our team. Your support and partnership have been the driving force behind our successes, and I'm grateful to work alongside such dedicated individuals. I'm especially proud of the innovative tools we've developed together to streamline our interagency communication. When Secretary Blinken highlighted our collaboration and tasking tool at the recent Global OMS conference, it underscored not just my work, but the collective vision we share for the Embassy of the future. Mission Honduras aims to be a forward-thinking leader in diplomatic initiatives, and we strive to embrace technology to improve our operations. This tool has truly revolutionized how we collaborate, flattening hierarchies, accelerating clearance processes, and eliminating the inefficiencies of email and paper. I'm thrilled that more than 40 posts are already on board, and I'm looking forward to seeing our innovations expand across the department. To my mentors and everyone who believed in me, thank you for inspiring me to push boundaries and embrace new ideas. This award is a reminder that we can all contribute to shaping the Embassy of the future, and I'm excited to continue this journey with all of you. Finally, I hope we all continue to champion innovation, teamwork, and inclusivity as we shape the future of our department. Thank you once again for this incredible recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to Dana, and thank you, Ambassador Dogu, for representing her. Now I'd like to welcome John Clements, Chairman of Clements Worldwide, to present the M. Juanita Guess Award for Exemplary Performance by a Community Liaison Officer. John?
Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to present the M. Juanita Guess Award, which is given each year to a community liaison officer in recognition of their critical role at U.S. diplomatic missions abroad. The award was named after my late mother, M. Juanita Guess, who served in the Foreign Service in the 1940s and was the co-founder and former president of Clements Worldwide. She had a profound admiration for the Foreign Service mission, and that was instilled in me at a very deep level. My family has been honored to support this award for many decades. This year's recipients of the M. Juanita Guess Award are Christophe Picard and Sherry Zimmerman. As the close at U.S. Embassy Jerusalem and Embassy Branch Office Tel Aviv, they provided tremendous support to an embassy community during an unprecedented challenge following the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. Their immediate action helped to ensure clear communication and address personal hardships amid this uncertainty. As the authorized departures of families was announced, they organized town halls, coordinated emergency information, assisting family members in their preparations. I'd like to invite both recipients to the stage, and congratulations.
Sherry, first I'm going to go to Mr. Clements, and then Sherry, you want to stand here. I'll have y'all both hold behind me. Sure.
You go first. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm deeply honored to receive the Juanita Guest Award today, and even more so to share this recognition with Sherry, my partner in crime. During that time of uncertainty in Israel, we were lucky to lean on each other and rely on one another. But we're truly fortunate to have a resilient community and also to have a great support of our management team, who is represented here by David Elmo. Thank you, David. I'm profoundly grateful to the Global Community Liaison Office for their unwavering support while I was in DC. They found me a place to work and gave me anything that I needed to move forward with a job. Standing here, I feel surreal. Coming from a small village in France, I never imagined that I would ever one day be accepting a prestigious award. This moment truly fulfilled my American dream. Thank you, AFSA, for this incredible recognition. Thank you as well to John Clements and Clements Worldwide for your support and recognizing this award for the job that we are doing as Community Liaison Officer. And finally, I want to express how happy I am to share this moment today with both of my sisters, Bérangère and Valérie, who are here today from France. My husband, Tom, my friends, and my colleagues from the other office where I work now, from the Chief of Protocol. So thank you for all being here. Your presence means a lot to me. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Let's continue to lift each other up and stay strong. So no matter what challenge we will be successful. Thank you so much, everyone.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for this special award ceremony hosted by AFSA. Thank you to GCLO for the never-ending support. And thank you especially to John Clements and Clements Worldwide for making this award possible and highlighting the importance of clothes. I, for one, am immensely thankful that the CLO role exists and feel lucky that I was able to serve in the role twice. Thank you for allowing our families to be here today, because many of them are not with us when we're posted overseas. Thank you for especially, I should say, to those that took the time to nominate us for this award. It's not an easy job writing up an award nomination, and thank you, it means a lot. It's truly an honor to be recognized and to share this award with Christoph, who was not only my colleague, but will forever be my dear friend. Makes it all the more meaningful. Throughout my 4+ years in Israel, there was always conflict, frequently with rockets fired directly at Tel Aviv and much of Israel. It is sadly interesting how people get comfortable living in a place that is always under attack, and yet carry on with everyday life. As close, it is our job to be directly responsible for driving and maintaining the morale and quality of life for the diplomatic staff, their family members, and the embassy community as a whole. This is a role that we thrive in, and it's the reason we applied for the position in the first place. We understand the difficulty of the lifestyle. We sincerely care about people and their comfort while serving abroad, and we just want to make a difference. And there should be someone that cares and takes on this role, because living and serving overseas can be difficult and challenging. All embassy communities should be supported in such a manner. October 7th, that attack, however, was much different. It terrified and challenged each one of us at Embassy Jerusalem in a unique way. Immediately, everyone at Post was working around the clock, doing everything to ensure the safety of the mission and the people. For the families of the employees, this often meant taking care of themselves and their children in extreme times of uncertainty, while many of their spouses were not home because they were working. CLO Tel Aviv and CLO Jerusalem were 100% devoted to our communities. We worked with the country team to ensure accurate and pertinent information was being shared as quickly as possible, and to alleviate the fears of as many as we could, all in an effort to try to reassure the community that we would be safe and we would get through this crisis. We simply did our jobs as best as we could. This award today means that people know we gave it our all, and that means more than anything to us. It has been 376 days since October 7th. It is with tremendous heartache for so many, to include me and my family who is here today, that the war goes on, and especially that there are still 101 hostages, to include 7 Americans held in Gaza. And with the recent attack from Iran and the constant threat of missiles, I'm sure the communities are again experiencing another extreme period of uncertainty. Worth noting, yesterday, October 15th, marked a year to the day that Embassy Jerusalem went on authorized departure. I pray that's not needed again. My hope is that all those serving abroad always remain safe and secure. I pray for a path to peace for the whole of Israel, and may those still serving in every capacity have the strength to carry on and fight for good over evil. It's really huge to be standing with all of you today. So there are some amazing people here. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you for including us in this award. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again, Christoph and Sherry. Now I have the pleasure of honoring the recipient of the award for achievements and contributions to AFSA, our association, which recognizes an active duty or retired AFSA member of any of the foreign affairs agencies represented by AFSA who has made a significant non-monetary contribution to the association. Harry Kopp, AFSA's unofficial historian, as we call him, has worked tirelessly to preserve the history of the U.S. Foreign Service and AFSA. In his seminal book, Voice of the Foreign Service, Harry illuminates the stories of the professionals and the achievements, challenges, and legacy of the Foreign Service. Beyond writing, he advocated for digitizing over 100 years of the Foreign Service Journal, which is an incredible achievement and an incredible resource. His deep historical knowledge has provided valuable context for AFSA leadership, and has been a key member of the Foreign Service Journal editorial board. Please join me in welcoming Harry to the stage to accept this award and say a few words. Harry? Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Tom. Let me give thanks especially to Sean Dorman and to Eric Rubin, who got the project started for the current edition of Voice of the Foreign Service. And thanks also to John Nayland, who is an AFSA stalwart and the careful, knowledgeable, and critical reader that every writer wishes they could have. And I was lucky enough to have one. Now, as the fact checkers like to say, this award needs context. When I was an active duty officer, I was only briefly a member of AFSA because I believed that commissioned officers, and I was one, should not belong to a union. So when AFSA became a union in 1973, I let my membership lapse. It was only after I left active duty in 1985 that I came to understand that the Foreign Service and the agencies in which it was housed, the Departments of State and the others, were different institutions with different interests, different objectives that did not always coincide, and that AFSA spoke for the Foreign Service. I was curious to know how this had come to pass, and I did some research and I did some writing, and in time, AFSA, through President Susan Johnson, who not too long ago received the award being presented here today to me, asked me to write a history of the association, what I call an institutional biography. And the result was the book called The Voice of the Foreign Service, which was published first in 2015 and brought up to date in a revised and much improved edition, a centennial edition published earlier this year. I am delighted to be recognized for this work. It was a labor of love for which I acknowledge I was also paid. Here it is. It's a pretty good book, and I hope you read it.
Thank you, Harry. Well deserved. Now I would like to welcome AFSA State Vice President Tina Wong to the stage to present the 2024 AFSA Post Representative of the Year Award. Tina?
Thank you, Tom, and congratulations again, Harry. It's my great pleasure today to present the Post Rep of the Year Award to Anne Martin Montgomery and Dina Zeltzer of Embassy Bangkok. The Post Rep Award of the Year is presented to exemplary AFSA post representatives who have demonstrated sustained and successful engagement with AFSA membership at posts and post management. Anne and Dina are recognized today for their initiative and leadership, engaging first and second tour officers, FASTOs, from our 21 posts across East Asia and Pacific. They have leveraged their engagement opportunities during a regional conference in Bangkok, and they did this incredible job highlighting AFSA's value and the work we do on behalf of our members and of the Foreign Service. And this is to amplify our mission, not only at their post, but across the region. Perhaps even more important, they catalyzed new officers to ask AFSA governing board and staff hard questions. That is helping connect resources and support to new orientation classes of new employees and getting them more involved in our AFSA post-rep program. So I would like to welcome Anne's nephew, Gavin, and Dina's colleague and friend, Elizabeth, to the stage to accept the award on behalf of our winners and to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. On behalf of my aunt, I would like to extend her thanks for the tireless support of her co-rep, Dina Zeltzer, James York, Patrick Bradley, and the amazing AFSA staff. As a first tour Foreign Service Officer at U.S. Embassy Bangkok, As a first tour Foreign Service Officer, she's honored to have the opportunity to serve her fellow FSOs at U.S. Embassy Bangkok and looks forward to filling the role of post-rep in her future assignments. In particular, she works to identify and highlight the needs of fast officers, specialists, and to provide the assistance of officers in a timely and professional manner. On an institutional level, my aunt and her co-rep have shared a passion for financial planning resources to assist FSOs and their families not to only succeed in their careers, but in retirement as well. They advocate tirelessly for a financial education and improvements that will safeguard all Foreign Service families. This honor reflects the potential of all ASPA reps have. She hopes to live up to that potential. As our union, ASPA is charged with protecting and improving the lives of our officers that we represent. No bureaucracy is perfect, but bureaucracies present systems with regulations and procedures that can be improved, changed, and in some instances replaced to create a more equitable work environment. That is what my aunt hopes to continue to contribute to. Thank you.
Hi, I am Elizabeth Callender, and I had the privilege of serving with Dina Zeltzer-Wynant in Bangkok. And I was alongside her during the biggest challenge of her life, losing her tandem FSO husband, Ed Wynant, also a good friend of mine and a former State Department FSO. Through this challenge, Dina identified an inequity in how beneficiaries of FSOs who die overseas receive the payout from FEGLI, suffering an 11% penalty due to the overseas comparability pay being 2/3 of the DC locality pay. Dina brought this to AFSA's attention, and they have included this issue as one of their legislative priorities. Through her grief, Dina remained committed to improving the institution of the Foreign Service. Thank you.
Congratulations again to the post-rep winners. I would now like to welcome Ambassador Avis Boland to the stage to present the Avis Boland Award for an eligible family member. Ambassador.
Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everybody. It's really always a pleasure and a privilege to present the Avis Boland Award, which was established by the late Ambassador Pamela Harriman in honor of my mother, the wife of a Foreign Service officer. The award aimed to honor the spouses, which in those days meant wives exclusively, of Foreign Service officers whom Ambassador Harriman rightly considered to be the unsung foot soldiers of our embassies abroad. Although expectations of Foreign Service spouses have evolved since then, the contributions and service of Foreign Service family members continue to enrich the lives of our diplomatic missions overseas. The Avis Boland Award recognizes family members who have made a significant and meaningful impact on not only the U.S. mission community, but especially the adopted community of their host country. This year's recipient, Cornell Overfield, is being recognized for a truly unusual contribution, namely herding stray cats in Bishkek in the Kyrgyz Republic, where the stray cat population is a serious health hazard. Working with embassy colleagues and volunteers to unite local animal welfare groups, Cornell's leadership and dedication resulted in the creation of 32 winterized cat shelters and a trap, neuter, release initiative for over 150 street cats. Bringing together members of the embassy community and local civil society as he did is exactly the kind of achievement this award is meant to highlight. So I would like to ask Cornell to come to the stage to accept this award and to say a few words.
Would you like your cane?
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank Ambassador Boland for her support to this award that recognizes the contributions that the spouses of foreign service officers can make to both their host communities and American diplomacy. I also would like to thank the American Foreign Service Association and the U.S. Department of State for their support to foreign service families. Finally, I would also like to recognize the J. Kirby Simon Foreign Service Trust for their support of the Mishuk Ui project. We could not have done it without them. This prize means so much to me, and more importantly, to our partners in the Bishkek cat community, the vet faculty and students at the Kyrgyz Turkish Manas University, the local rescue groups and volunteers, affectionately known as the babushki, or the grandmothers who look after cats on the street, and our U.S. Embassy Bishkek colleagues. Their efforts helped us far exceed our initial goals, ultimately treating about 150 cats in just 2 months last year. And the work continues. I recently found out that they've recently met with the mayor's office in Bishkek, and talks are underway to replace the cull program that they currently use to control the cat and dog population in Bishkek with a trap neuter release program modeled on the Mishuk Ui project. The close relationship between civil society and the U.S. Embassy community members in Bishkek remains invaluable. When I learned of this award, we were quickly able to use the attached prize money to continue the trap neuter release program with a target of an additional 100 cats. As they would say in the Kyrgyz Republic, Eki erdin dostugu bir belden ashirat, Eki eldin dostugu ming belden ashirat. 2 friends can go over 1 pass, 2 friendly nations will go over 1,000 passes. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, Ambassador Boland, and congratulations, Cornell. Here I thought herding cats was just a figure of speech. So now I'd like to, on behalf of the Palmer family, I'd like to welcome Mr. Shiraz Myra to the stage to present our next award, the Mark Palmer Award for the Advancement of Democracy. Mr. Myra, please.
Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to present the Mark Palmer Award for the Advancement of Democracy. We established the award in 2015 in honor of my aunt, Sushma Palmer's late husband, and she's here in the audience today, and my uncle, Ambassador Mark Palmer. The award is dedicated to his lifelong passion for promoting democracy and human rights. The award recognizes members of the U.S. Foreign Services who embody bold and creative achievement and demonstrate imaginative, determined, and effective means to advance democracy and expand freedom in closed societies. This year's Palmer Award is shared by 2 distinguished diplomats from among several outstanding candidates who were reviewed by our panel. Our first award is for Paul Estrada. And Paul, thank you. Ukraine. Ukraine Desk Officer in the Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs in Washington, D.C., Paul's expert persistence during a critical period in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and his leadership in uniting stakeholders across the department, the embassy in Kiev, and other U.S. government agencies helped leverage nearly $23 billion in U.S. direct support for Ukraine. These funds enabled Ukraine to defend itself and work towards a more democratic future through critical anti-corruption and governance reforms. Paul, it's my honor to present you the 2024 Mark Palmer Award for the advancement of democracy. Congratulations.
Thank you all so much. There are so many people important to me that I need and want to thank. First of all, thank you to AFSA. It's an honor to receive the Mark Palmer Award for the advancement of democracy. Also, a special thank you to the Palmer family for sponsoring this award. I'm truly humbled to receive this award, and it's an honor to be part of such an incredible group of award winners here today. It's also a privilege to share this award with my esteemed co-recipient, Mark Wilson, for his incredible work in Senegal. This honor, I think, is a testament to the strong cooperation between EURE, Office of Eastern European Affairs, and professionals and colleagues across the department, many of whom I'd like to recognize from the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, INL, Department of Economic and Business Affairs, EB, and of course the Office of the Coordinator of U.S. Assistance to Europe and Eurasia. Their partnership has been invaluable to me and to our mission as a State Department. Thank you to my colleagues on the Ukraine desk, especially those who I worked with on the econ team. I want to recognize especially Dan Bischoff and Ann Coleman-Hahn for their leadership and support on the Ukraine desk. I'm also especially grateful to Amanda Beck for her mentorship and guidance and for nominating me for this award. I would also like to recognize all of the dedicated individuals who have served at Embassy Kyiv, both past and present, and all those who will continue to serve into the future. They are the diplomats on the front lines helping Ukraine win the future, and their commitment to advancing democracy in Ukraine inspires all of us. I want to note the importance of reforms to Ukraine's future. These efforts continue to be essential to building a stable, prosperous, and democratic Ukraine, and I'm proud to have been a part of such a fantastic team to support Ukraine in this endeavor. Lastly, I want to say a special thank you to my family. I'm very grateful to have family all around the world supporting me as part of my Foreign Service career. My cousin Yvette, my awesome cousin Yvette, who's here today cheering me on, and my wife Sophie is at home taking care of our 2-year-old son Bruce. I'm very blessed to have such a fantastic partner and best friend to share this journey with. Thank you all again.
I am back. Thank you, Paul. Our second recipient this year is Mark Wilson of the Embassy of Dakar. During his 5-year tenure in Senegal, Mark's leadership was pivotal in helping preserve democracy and fostering peace in West Africa. As director for USAID's Senegal's Democracy, Rights, Governance, and Peace Office, he managed a $10 million elections program. Mark deftly promoted and succeeded in his efforts to help ensure free, fair, and peaceful elections at the local, legislative, and presidential levels. During political unrest, Mark's efforts helped restore stability and prevent unconstitutional power grabs. Furthermore, Mark's diplomatic approach and collaboration with key government officials secured additional funding for expanded voter education, which in turn helped to strengthen election transparency. Mark, it is my pleasure to present you with the 2024 Mark Palmer Award for the advancement of democracy. Congratulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you, AFSA. Thank you, the Palmer family, for this recognition, for sponsoring all efforts. Thank you, Paul Estrada, for sharing the award with me. Since the first time I met my first diplomat, I was 7. His name was Sterling Steele. This was in Accra, Ghana. I've wanted to be in the Foreign Service. I discovered USAID, was also a member of the Foreign Service in high school, and started my career as a crisis governance and stabilization officer. I'm here today because of the support I've received from colleagues, stakeholders, beneficiaries who have allowed me to thrive, who have protected me and encouraged me to take risk in the effort to promote democracy, in the effort to extend our values and our principles in a way that reinforces our national security interests and priorities. It's never been easy, but it's always been a joy. I also need to thank my family, Megan, Maxwell, Mosley, who are here today, my brother, my nephew, Lee. Without them, we couldn't go post to post, let alone promote something like democracy in countries that struggle for rule of law, that are characterized by human rights violations, that have very little opportunity to engage with others. So thank you again. Thank you, AFSA.
Congratulations, Paul and Mark. It was really well done. We will now present our awards for constructive dissent. For over 50 years, AFSA has encouraged the Foreign Service community to uphold the important tradition of dissent by exhibiting the courage to challenge the system. AFSA believes wholeheartedly in the need for dissent and the merits of taking a stand to effect constructive changes to the system. The first Constructive Dissent Award is the F. Allen Tex Harris Award for a Foreign Service Specialist. This year, our recipient is David Houston. David played a key role in advancing U.S. foreign policy on digital assets and distributed ledger technology. Representing the Department of State on interagency working groups on this topic, he analyzed over 600 cables on digital assets, which identified critical gaps in U.S. foreign policy as it relates to these assets. These gaps were most notable with respect to human rights and cyberspace and digital policies. David first proposed 2 innovative solutions to the policy and planning staff, but ultimately turned to the dissent channel to initiate an urgent conversation on this complex subject. His 13-page cable outlining both substantive and procedural dissent led senior leadership to concur with certain key findings in his analysis. David, please join us on stage to accept this award and to say a few words, please.
It was very thoughtful of AFSA to award the Tex Harris Award to someone whose last name is Houston. So thank you, AFSA. Thank you, distinguished guests. I'd like to also thank my parents who've always been supportive and are hopefully learning more about what we do here and what I do in the State Department. I'd also like to recognize our other recipients for constructive dissent. I think it's worth noting that it really says something about not only our country, but the Department of State and other Foreign Service organizations that we recognize this in the first place. I would imagine that that's not true in a lot of other nations worldwide. So I think that it's important to even acknowledge that dissent is a very, I don't know, perhaps uniquely, but certainly a very American quality. A nation born of dissent in many ways, and certainly doing it in these constructive ways can lead to constructive conversations. So with respect to digital assets specifically, we have approximately, it's a complex topic. We have approximately 95% of global GDP that is in some stage of exploration with respect to central bank digital currencies. And at the same time, on the decentralized side of this conversation, we're talking about the changing of value or information or data across distributed ledgers that exist through some sort of censorship-resistant network. So on either side of this equation, we're talking about a sort of challenge to traditional roles that are understood between the relationship of money and state, perhaps more broadly data and state. And I encourage the Department of State to lean into this topic. And to do so, I outline, it should come as no surprise, someone who drafts the 13-page dissent cable has some strong opinions on the topic, but I outline a number of recommendations in there, and I encourage state to move forward with the 7th floor response to this steer to help kind of recalibrate the conversations, to help sort of represent the sort of plurality of the equities that are at stake in the department, the sort of recognition that this is couched in the larger global context of many other states who don't necessarily see this the same way we do, and that to assert our foreign policy prerogative at the table within the interagency. And ideally to do so in a way that is data-driven, experiential, empirically grounded, and nonpartisan. And to the extent that I am able to assist, I am available for consultation. And again, thank you very much.
I didn't quite get all that, but it sounded very impressive. Well, thank you, David, and congratulations. I would like to now ask AFSA State Vice President Tina Wong to return to the stage to present the W. Averill Harriman Award for constructive dissent by an entry-level Foreign Service officer. Tina?
Thank you again, Tom. It is one of my greatest honors to present this award, this next award, the W. Averill Harriman Award, to Maria Illes. We got to know each other actually before even AFSA, during the COVID pandemic as leaders of employee organizations. She's a fellow advocate in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility community. And as this fellow advocate, Maria is an example of an officer who deeply believes in constructive dissent and dialogue, and has been that courageous voice for many at an early stage in her Foreign Service career. After the attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023, and the ensuing military campaign in Gaza, Maria displayed extraordinary initiative and leadership in community building and advocacy for inclusive policies to support colleagues from diverse backgrounds to improve public messaging. Her efforts led to the expansion of the employee consultation services to all employees affected by this crisis. As chair of the American Muslims and Friends at State, an employee organization, she coordinated opportunities for solidarity and unity among Muslims, Jewish, and Christian employee groups, and effectively engaged senior leadership on the concerns of the Muslim employees regarding U.S. policy in Israel and Gaza. Her work led to the first ever cable to combat Islamophobia by the International Religious Freedom Office. So please join me in a warm welcome Maria to the stage to accept her award and to provide short remarks.
That's a heavy globe. Good afternoon, esteemed guests. I want to thank my nominators and the broader AFSA community for this tremendous honor. I'm also grateful for my mentors, my colleagues, and my family for supporting me. This recognition is not mine alone. I share this honor with extraordinary peers whose commitment to service inspires me anew each day. I must confess that it feels incongruous to be celebrating when so many around the world are suffering. We're grappling with the weight of ongoing conflicts from Gaza to Haiti, Lebanon, Ukraine, Sudan, the anxieties of a perilous moment, perhaps the most dangerous since Cold War, and the pressing question of where our embattled world is headed. It is in such moments of uncertainty that America runs the greatest risks of deviating from its professed values: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it is in such moments, therefore, that us public servants must exercise our greatest vigilance. When we take the oath to serve, we assume the duty to dissent when our nation's actions fall short of these professed ideals. To dissent is to not be an idle contrarian, but a passionate pragmatist, one whose worries when discrepancy emerges and identifies pathways for course correction. Dissent takes different forms, whether a formal cable to leadership or an informal conversation with a supervisor. And when done right, it can mobilize masses and inspire change. Observing U.S. policy in Gaza, I chose to dissent a third way, by engaging in community building, by elevating voices who may otherwise have been silenced or overlooked. The programming we organized showcased to the workforce and the department leadership that we stand united against terrorism wherever it occurs and hatred wherever it exists. The gatherings we convened underscored our commitment to peace and our dignification of life. We stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and often hand in hand, so that our colleagues could pause, so that they could reflect, and renew their resolve to advance America's ideals. As diplomats, we're charged with preventing conflict through dialogue. And when dialogue fails, war breaks out. We do our best to contain its rapid spread, often risking our own lives. But we too are human. We too feel the scourge of war. And only if we support one another can we really marshal the strength to continue to do our work. So thus did I dissent, to enhance communication between the workforce and the department leadership, and to underscore that U.S. foreign policy affects those of us who help implement it. So in this time of profound upheaval, I invite each of you to join the community that I'm helping to build, one that seeks to uplift those who feel unseen, unheard, and unnoticed. They may be your subordinates. They may be your leaders. They may be sitting right next to you. Find them, applaud them, and elevate them. Together, we can demonstrate that justice, dignity, and peace are not just illusions, but possibilities. Thank you.
Well done, Maria. Thank you. Ahead of our final award of the day, it is now my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Charles Rifkin, Chairman and CEO of the Motion Picture Association, to present the William R. Rifkin Award for Constructive Dissent by a mid-level Foreign Service officer. Charlie and the Rifkin family are true supporters of AFSA, the Foreign Service, and the abiding importance of constructive dissent to successful policymaking, We are deeply grateful to the Rifkin family's support for AFSA and this award over many decades. Charlie, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Tom, for your kind introduction, and thank you to AFSA for your continued and ongoing support of these important awards. It's always great for me to be back here at the State Department. It's a place I called home for 8 years when I had the honor of serving as the U.S. Ambassador to France and subsequently as the Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, go EB. And whenever I return here, every time, I think about when I present the award on behalf of my family, I think about, first and foremost, my father, Ambassador William Rifkin, and his love of country and service. But I also think about my godfather, Hubert Humphrey, who helped establish this award with my mother and AFSA 56 years ago. It was just after my father died while serving as Chief of Mission in Dakar, and Humphrey was the sitting vice president. Everything Hubert Humphrey did grew out of his belief in an America more free and fair at home and more engaged and just around the world. And across his storied career, he kept faith in the principle at the heart of this award, in the power and in the importance of constructive dissent. Humphrey once said, "Freedom is hammered out on the anvil of discussion, dissent, and debate." And for him, as everybody here, that wasn't an idle statement, but it's a clear declaration that freedom is never easy and freedom is never given. Freedom is an ongoing project. Freedom, like our democracy, like our diplomacy, is strengthened by reasoned dissent. So, by their willingness to speak up and speak out, the exceptional recipients of this year's William R. Rifkin Award live up to that ideal. In the aftermath of Hamas's horrific October 7th attack on Israel, Carol Tuma, Emily Green, Mike Casey, and Conrad Tursky provided Washington with a thoughtful analysis on U.S. interests and their priorities in the region. And as policy discussions progressed on the impact of the war on Gaza civilians, these officers determined that a dissent cable was their best avenue to ensure that their informed concerns and their on-the-ground perspective would be evaluated and heard. That cable exemplified intellectual courage, defining the topic on which they disagreed, demonstrating their understanding of the nuances surrounding American policy toward the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and its regional implications, articulating why the department should take specific actions. Indeed, their cable not only showed us the importance of constructive dissent, particularly in a crisis situation, it personified the highest caliber of the diplomatic skill set, integrity and insight, a deep well of empathy and an immense depth of knowledge, a focus on the people that our policies impact, the innocent human beings in this case, caught in the midst of gut-wrenching violence. By honoring Carol and Emily, Mike, and Conrad, by recognizing their right, their duty to dissent, we help hammer out another chapter in our country's story of freedom, and this department and this nation are better for it. So on behalf of the Rifkin family, it's a true privilege to present you with the 2024 William R. Rifkin Award. Congratulations. Now, while So, ladies and gentlemen, Carol and Mike are unable to be here today, but I want to welcome Emily and Conrad to the stage to say a few words. Thank you both. Should we take a picture first?
Stand with the flag to a full public blood for the photo.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here among so many distinguished leaders of our service, mentors, colleagues, and my family who drove in from Ohio for this ceremony. I speak today on behalf of myself and my colleague Carol Tuma, who could not attend today. We're both honored and deeply humbled to receive this award. While it's not an accolade we sought, it's a privilege to be recognized. We would like to thank Ambassador Rivkin and the Rivkin family for sponsoring this award and for their support of intellectual courage and constructive dissent in the Foreign Service. We would also like to thank George Knoll for nominating us and for his leadership and support. In addition, we would like to use this platform to emphasize something that matters profoundly: standing up against anti-Semitism, anti-Arab sentiment, and Islamophobia. For those of you who do not know us, we would like to be unequivocal. These forms of hatred, which have too often crept into discussions on this war, are destructive and abhorrent. It is vital that we confront and challenge these prejudices, not just in moments of high visibility, but as a constant practice in our daily lives. Carol can't be here today because she's currently serving in Embassy Beirut. She'd like to take this opportunity, though, to reiterate the importance of the role of the United States, particularly our diplomatic efforts, in bringing this war to an end, implementing the two-state solution, and supporting sustainable peace in the region. Throughout this crisis, I had the privilege of working alongside many brave colleagues trying to do the right thing in an utterly untenable situation. My colleagues and I came together to develop a narrow, constructive dissent that we felt compelled to submit in line with our values, integrity, and high standards of professional conduct. And we're honored to work for an organization that allows for and even celebrates dissent. In accepting this award publicly, we hope we can encourage others to find the courage to speak up in alignment with your values. Thank you.
Emily, thank you so much. It's such an honor to share this award with you and with Carol and Mike. Allow me to begin by thanking AFSA, thanking the inspiring Ambassador Rivkin and the Rivkin family, thanking my wife, Dahlia, and thanking my parents and my father, who visited here today from Seattle. They brought me here to this country 38 years ago. Thank you. I wanted to dedicate my remarks today, which I'm giving in my personal capacity, towards recognizing our colleagues who continue to serve at Mission Jerusalem, Embassy Branch Office Tel Aviv, USAID, and a place near and dear to my heart, the Office of Palestinian Affairs, OPA, as we affectionately call it. Put simply, these are some of the most inspiring people you will meet in the Foreign Service, and they're serving under extraordinary pressure. How else can you describe the heartbreak that so many felt in the weeks following October 7th, walking past pictures of abducted toddlers with the simple plea, "Bring them home," written on walls and empty playgrounds? How else can you describe the feeling that many of our colleagues felt in the ensuing weeks when they started to receive phone calls from inside of Gaza, from gifted Palestinian scholarship recipients and contacts, pleading for help getting out of Gaza as explosions rang in the background? These were the people who were supposed to be the future of Gaza after Hamas. And yet, our colleagues in Jerusalem persevered and continue to persevere, not despite this heartbreak, but because of the urgency of this crisis. From working to keep the dream of the two-state solution alive, to shining a light on extremist settler attacks in the West Bank, the Foreign Service officers in Jerusalem today continue the yeoman's work of building peace in a land that still cries out for it. In doing so, they are not just implementing American policies. They are advancing American values, including one of the most hallowed American ideals, that we are created equal and deserve to be treated that way. It's a sentiment that was voiced by the Secretary himself when he publicly affirmed, "We do not value one life over another in this conflict." The same presumption of equality was voiced by former Ambassador Nides when he said, with regard to the imperative of equal treatment of Arab Americans flying into Ben Gurion Airport, that a blue passport is a blue passport. It's an idea so important you can see it etched in granite down the hill at the Lincoln Memorial. The proposition that we are created equal. There's a reason it's carved in stone. I could not be prouder of the values and the policies our Foreign Service colleagues continue to advance in Jerusalem, at OPA, across the mission. They are as deserving as anyone of our recognition and gratitude today. Thank you.
So thank you all for coming today. This concludes our ceremony. Congratulations again to all this year's winners, and thank you for your service. We now invite all of you to join us for a reception in the Delegates Lounge. Before we adjourn, one final thank you to each of you for joining us again in this amazing group of award recipients. Can we give them another round of applause, please?